Hey, today we are going to be removing and installing a rotor on a 94 Ford Bronco. It's not usually a hard task on most vehicles, but on this one here it's actually pressed on to the hub, so we have to remove the locker, the bearings, pretty much all the guts and everything, the nut to slide the whole thing off. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Alright, for this model, it has the Ranger hub assembly on it, the Bronco Ranger hub assembly on it. It's kind of rare, you don't see it too often, so you don't really know any information on it. But to identify this style, is it has these three bolts right here. They're T27s, so you got to go ahead and remove those, and we'll do that. I already redid that. You take the cap off, set it aside. Now you're looking at that and you're like, well, how does that come off? And usually on automatic hubs, or any kind of hub really, you just spin it around and there's an access hole somewhere on here to pull out the retaining ring. Well, unfortunately on this one, it doesn't have that. This is just locked in here. So what you usually do is you get yourself a good pick, you know, with a 90-degree bend on it, or even a hook pick, and you take it and you ride it around the inside here. Now, for purpose of the video, I already removed that, but what it looks like is this piece right here. So once you remove that ring, all you got to do is just grab hold of this, pull on it, and that part comes out like that. So just take it, set it aside, right like that. Now, the next part is the thing that actually locks the shaft to the actual hub itself. So all you do is you take your thing up on in there, pull out this first retaining washer, set it off to the side, pull out shim, like that, set it off to the side on top of it, and then should have one more in there. Well, it doesn't look like it, and but there is a key in here, so you go ahead and pull off the second clip. Which is just a little U, looks like this. It's just slid right on there like that, just farther down in a groove. So take it, set it off to the side too. Next, there should be another shim in here. Just fish around with your pick. This one's splined, so you have to line it up with the shaft. Looks like that. Set it off on top of that. Then you should be home free to pull out the actual locker. Out like this. Now, don't be worried because you can only put it in one way. If you look in here, it's got a keyway on it, and it slides in place on top of the actual spindle itself. So it only goes in one way. Next thing you're going to have to do is remove the actual key that's holding the nut out. Now to do that, I usually take my socket. It's a special socket. Get from Napa or AutoZone for removing Ford hubs, this style hub. Put it in there, lock it on there, and just rock it just to free the key up a little bit. So you just get pretty much no pressure on that key is all I'm trying to do here. And you just take your needle nose pliers up on in there, And you pull it out like that. And this is what this one looks like. There's a couple of different styles. But once you do that, set it to the side with your pile of parts. Take your hub nut remover tool in there, just a big old socket. Just start removing it. Alright, this is what it looks like. Set it next to all your parts on a clean rag. Just keep everything all clean rag. Now there's a bearing in here and a bearing up behind. So when you pull it out, make sure they don't fall out and hit the ground and get all dirty. So you just grab hold of it. And there you have your rotor and hub assembly. The next part is to hammer out all the studs that were sticking up from the back. They're in there like that. You just hit them with the hammer and they all come out. Now, what we're going to do is usually you want to press the actual hub piece right here off the rotor. You can see there's a line right here that connect the two. So we don't have that here, so what we're going to do is use some blocks of wood, set it up like that, put a hunk of wood here, and then hammer it down. On older ones, a mini sledgehammer to a big sledgehammer we preferred. I didn't do this one too long ago, so hopefully this hammer itself will be able to break it free and knock it off. So now you see here, you got the rotor itself separated from the hub unit itself. So we're going to go ahead and clean this up because I got a little dirt in there from hammering on it. And what you're going to want to do is take some sandpaper, fine grit sandpaper, like 800 grit if not finer, steel wool work, or just something to clean up this surface to make putting the new rotor back on a little easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. All cleaned up. I usually tap it with a hammer to slide the hub a little ways back onto the rotor itself, and then I use 3 studs, and I usually pick them back in with the caps that don't have any centers on the top, because we're going to use that to pull the rotor right back onto the hub. So put 3 in there, evenly spaced apart, and get your air in packed. I mean, you could use a regular one too, but use 3 studs to make sure it's aligned properly, because you don't want to hammer that back out. So let's see if we can pull it back on there.